Welcome to the Signal Pres podcast.
Welcome to the Signal Pres podcast, the place for you to learn, to grow, and to get connected to the body of Christ here at Signal Pres. I am Joey Sherrod. I'm one of your hosts.
And I'm Abby Hutto. Sorry. I'm also one of your hosts.
Abby was pre-podcasting on snacking on some Skittles.
I was.
And things got in her throat. She is not the only person who eventually this afternoon at Signal Pres will be enjoying Skittles. Mm-hmm. And the couple who will be enjoying Skittles are Cater and Beth Newbold. Welcome to the podcast.
Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Great to be here.
It's good to have you guys with us. I believe, am I right in thinking this is our first couple guest? Is that right?
Yes.
That's right.
Yes. I had to think about that for a second.
We've had so many episodes, but I've been here for so long.
Dozens. Actually, I don't even know. I don't think so.
Anyway. It is a real joy to have you guys with us. Two of my favorite people around Signal Pres, Cater and Beth. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? Tell us about life, family, where you are from, then where you were, and then where you were from again, all those kind of things. Okay.
Are you going first? I am. Okay. My name is Beth Newbold. I grew up here on Signal Mountain in this church. So baptized in the church, went here all my life. And high school, I met Carter, went away to college at North Carolina, ended up living in North Carolina. We got married and moved to Boston, had 3 kids. Our oldest is a son, Nathan, middle, Lucy, and youngest, Stella, who is graduating from college in less than a week.
Oh, man. Congratulations.
Exciting times at the Newbold house.
Yeah.
Nice.
So it's fun for me to be in this church just because I have so many memories of growing up here and time spent with family and going to Camp John Knox and family camp. So it's awesome to be here.
That's great. Great. And with her, Cater Newbold.
Hey, everybody. I'm going to make a pitch for being the podcast guest who actually slept in a bed as a child closest to the podcast studio. I lived on Texas Avenue until I was 6 years old.
All right.
So somebody can compete with me if they slept closer than that. Beth and I did indeed meet at a high school dance. By God's good providence, we wound up going to the same college. As she said, we lived away for a long time. We moved back here in 2006, and we live walking distance from the church. So we have been walking up and down the hill on James Boulevard so gratefully for nearly 20 years now. And we were married in this church. I think we were Bill Dudley's second marriage ceremony that he performed in 1989. Shout out to Bruce and Holly Novkov, who'd want to be known as first. So,
Not his second marriage ceremony, but his second one here.
Correct. It was our first and only marriage. Important distinction.
That's great. What keeps you two busy most days of the week? I'd be curious. We're talking about books today. This is kind of our summer reading episode, and that's particularly appropriate for Beth and what you do often during your day.
It is. I love to read, so I'm often reading, but if I'm not reading, I am at the library running the Book Nook, which is the used bookstore downstairs in the library that everyone should come. Our most expensive book is $2. We have great books. We have a great faith and spirituality section. We have tons of fiction. We have everything there. So it's kind of fun. And I love to see people who come in and are looking for a book. I play a lot of pickleball and I play a lot of mahjong and I talk to my kids on the phone a lot. So those are my main things. And walk the dog Moose, who is my companion and buddy every day.
Yeah.
I feel like we've had a lot of pickleball players on this podcast.
Yeah, but not clearly. I mean, there are many more to have on this podcast. It's kind of a thing.
It's a thing up here.
Yeah. Not just up here, but it's a thing. Yes, the Old Town Throwdown. There is this conversation about whether or not the Old Town Throwdown should be supplemented by, what would we call it? The Old Town...
I don't know.
Pickle Down? I don't know.
Pickle Down doesn't sound as right.
Yeah.
Pickle Palooza.
Pickle. Yes, it happened here. Trademarked. Here we go. Carter, what about you? What keeps you busy?
I work at Macaulay School, where I do a job on the administrative team, thinking about strategic planning and thinking about our board of trustees and how it functions and working on special projects. That's a second career for me. I spent most of my adult life doing an investing job, which was almost all the time in Boston, although we moved here a long time ago. So I worked remote before everybody worked remotely. What else keeps us busy? Beth loses socks, and then I find them. And then I lose shirts, and then she finds them. And
That's true.
we
travel a lot. We love to travel.
Yeah.
So when we can, we travel.
That's great. That's great. Is there, if you could go back and say, this was something about this trip made it the most sweetly memorable, can you think of one trip that would say that? You might have two trips since there's two people here. But yeah.
I think I would go for Greece. It's a trip we went right after my mom had passed away, and so I was sad. And it was just a beautiful place to be together as a family and remember her and her legacy. And we looked out on Albania, and we went out in a boat and were told not to go in a certain area or the Albanians would shoot us.
Oh, gosh.
I don't know if I can say that on this podcast. So sorry, it's not.
That's okay. It sounds like you're just reporting facts.
We were very careful and we did not get shot. So I'm thankful
That is
to
good
be here.
news.
That's right. If you had been, then this podcast would have gone a very different direction.
Correct.
We would have done a deep dive on that moment.
And I realized I probably should have said a different trip, which was the trip to Bald Head when we got engaged. But you go ahead. But our whole family went there.
That was going to be my favorite. My desire as a traveler is to be a lot like the best dog we ever had, which was a golden retriever named Barney. And his favorite walk that we ever took was always the last one that we went on. So I generally love the last trip that we went on, and I can't wait for the next one to be the last one. So to speak.
Great. That's great.
That's fun.
Well, have you ever made a trip down the Skittle Gauntlet? That's the question.
That is, I think not. Maybe this will be your favorite trip you've ever been on.
Yeah. Clearly, you are working a sponsorship angle here. Has anything come of this
I
yet?
should be buying stock in Skittles and goats.
Exactly. Or they should be buying stock in us.
If you get goats, I want cashmere goats so I can have yarn to knit. I forgot to tell that I like to knit.
Oh,
Something else. That's goats tally 2.
that's right. It's
Reasons we should have goats.
Subsidiary of goats in a boat is using their
Is cashmere
fur.
goats.
There we go.
All right. So we are going to play the Skittle game with y'all. So if you want to open up a package of Skittles, I think that many of our listeners are familiar with this, but we'll run through the rules. You'll pull out a Skittle, whatever color you choose. You will pick a color and read a question and answer it for us. So I don't care which one of you goes first, but you both picked the same color. What did you both get?
Well, we both got yellow. Do you
That's
want
good.
me to
No,
switch?
there's several questions
That's
under
right.
there. Or you could even answer the same question because you might not have the same answers. So let's see. Judging from the looks on your faces, Carter, you go first.
I would be delighted to. Okay, I recall a great piece of advice that my grandfather, my mom's dad, gave me, and it was about sometime in the first year of life of our eldest son, Nathan. And we were on a trip to see my grandparents, and we were in that stage of parenting where just everything about your child is the most glorious thing you've ever seen. It's the most perfect expression of what a human can be. And I was completely just besotted with Nathan, which is good and right. And I said something I'd said it like 8 or 10 times and I was sort of enjoying saying it. So I said it to my grandfather. I'm like that, by the way. I sort of say the same thing until I run into a wise person and they tell me otherwise. And the thing that I had been enjoying saying to my granddad was, isn't it amazing? God just makes them perfect. And all we have to really do is not mess them up. My grandfather was the father of 5 girls. And at that point in time, he was probably 75 or 80. And he had seen a lot of life. And he said, I wouldn't really bank on that being what's going to drive your work as a dad. Like, I wouldn't get really behind they're perfect and hence I will love them. I would get behind God has been good and gracious to give this child to you and you get to love them. And I have not forgotten that. And
Yeah.
that boy is now 27, so it stuck with me.
That's great.
Yeah,
That's
that's
great.
great.
Thanks, Carter.
If this were not the podcast that it is, I would surely talk about a book. But
that's
since
right.
you're going to hear me
Yeah,
talk about
that's
a
right.
lot of books,
Yeah.
I don't feel like that is the appropriate one to answer. A thing about Carter and I that has been a part of our life is he will ask me a question, would you like this or that? And I always say both. So I figure I'll answer a question where I'm going to tell you both. If I had a time machine, would I go into the past or the future? Both.
Both.
And I would go back to the past because I miss my parents. And so I would go back to when I was 8, which my children laugh so hard because that's the year I always choose to go back to when I was 8. I remember it very well. I had a magic 8 ball that I got for Christmas.
Maybe Skittles were invented that year.
Maybe, but no, because I'm so way older than Skittles. That would be fun. But there's a lot that I'm interested in the future because of my children thinking what life is going to be like for them.
Yeah.
And so that's the piece of that I'm interested in.
Yeah.
That's great.
Sounds great. Well, thank you for giving us the opportunity to get to know you, a Skittle.
Yes. We are going to get to know Carter and Beth a great deal by getting to know one of their great loves, not just each other, but books. This is our the first of 2 summer reading episodes. So it's May. We are seeing the finish line, if you're a parent or a student, of the end of school. You perhaps have a vacation coming where you will sit on a porch or on a beach and have some time to spend where you can read. And we do think that reading is just one of the gifts that we have as followers of Jesus. It opens our world in all sorts of ways. And so we're going to talk about why we read why we read books as followers of Jesus, and then also some books that we all love. So I would love to hear from you guys because I know you guys are both people who love to read. Beth and I, we've talked about books. In fact, we often talk about the same book, Kristen Lavren's Daughter by Sigrid Undset, which is a beautiful book that I'm always encouraging Beth to read. But it's a big book. So we talk about books a lot. Carter and I have been in book groups together multiple times. I always am encouraged by what he has to say. But what would you guys say as followers of Jesus? What have been the gifts of you of reading not just the Bible, but other books alongside Scripture?
Well, I think for me, it really develops a sense of empathy and care for others. I think it makes my world bigger. I can go places I've never been. Then I can have memories of places I've been before. I saw a really great quote, or 2 really great quotes. One was, "Fiction reveals to us the hidden complexities and mystery of God's creation, even when that fiction comes from the mind of someone who denies the Creator God. Great fiction reveals mysteries that we might never have discovered if we stayed hidden in our own private stories. We read fiction as Christians to delight in beauty, to better read His Word, and to better understand His world." And that is by Alan Noble. And I thought that was really beautiful because I feel like that's what it's been like for me.
Yeah, that's a really helpful quote, I think, just to kind of give us a grid for reading, because sometimes we'll read books by people we don't know if you share our faith commitments, but we can, I think, as Alan Noble says in that, we can read those profitably. It helps us understand them and in our world as well. Yeah.
My story as a reader probably evolves as my life experience has. I will say I grew up in a house with a lot of books around. I was raised by, hi Mom, an English teacher. There's a 1 in 1,000 chance she listens to this. When I was about 12 or 13, my brother and sister and I were all in the middle of doing one of the lengthy series of summer book reports that we were allowed / required to write each summer. And one of my friends, Ken, hi Ken, 1 in 10 million chance that you hear this, came over and asked what I was doing. And all in the course of about 5 really hot minutes, I figured out that not everybody had to write book reports in the summer. You only had to if you lived at my house.
Or mine. I was forced to write them.
So, alrighty, there we go. Small tribe.
Both pastors' kids.
There you go.
Deep allegiance. But reading for me is actually another form of travel. It's a way to go to places, to meet with people, to enter into stories. I think what I was less good at when I was young was having an appreciation for how all those stories, or the best parts of all those stories, rolled up under a better story. And I was probably overly inclined to kind of drop books into a bucket. This book is for this, this book is for that, this book is for the other. I don't know that I've gotten to be a better reader in terms of like comprehension of the words and how they string together, but I think I've become more appreciative of the way that reading kind of feeds reading, and the way that lots of things that we do, as you do more of it, they're just new things open up, and I love that about it. So.
Yeah, that's great.
One of the things we've talked about with our leaders before is the importance of putting on a lens that other people might see the world through. So we often go through life not realizing that we wear our own particular lens. And I think everyone sees the world the way that I do because this is the way that I see the world. And so I assume everybody sees it this way. And I love how both of you have brought up what we were encouraging our leaders to do, which is be willing to take somebody else's lens and put it on and look through life that way and see how they might see something differently because they've had different experiences or a different personality or a different family of origin or all the things that make our lens so complex and broken, but also really beautiful. And so I love that you have both picked up on that theme, that reading books is such a wonderful way to try on somebody else's lens.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know that, Beth, you helped bring an author to our community recently, Alan Levi, who's kind of his book, Theo of Golden. What a beautiful book. Really models that even as you read it, he is modeling this way of putting on other people's kind of shoes and walking around for a little bit and getting to know them and the beauty of their stories. That was such a gift that you did that.
Well, it was really fun. I mean, that's my first book that I was going to plug. So that is, it's called Theo of Golden, and he did come, and we had such a, I love meeting the authors of some of the book, and I've had the benefit to do that a couple of times, a couple of the books that I've brought today. So he did such a great job in that book of describing community and kindness and generosity and getting to know people who you would never meet otherwise. He chooses people's paintings and gifts them to them. He buys them and he gifts the portraits to people in a town that he's new to as a way to meet people there and get to know them. And Theo is just a wonderful character. And I think it's a book that appeals to everyone. Carter gave it to me for Christmas, and that was so fun that was a piece of it. But we had dinner with the author, and he is working on a sequel, and he spoke to a crowd of just over 180 people at the MAC, and we're hoping to get another author in, but we're going to get Alan Levi to come back after he writes his sequel.
Oh, that's great. That's great.
That's cool.
What a gift.
Yeah. Well, you've already done one, but we want to hear more. So we are so excited to have recommendations from y'all for what we just talked about. We're going to get some fiction recommendations from you and then talk about some nonfiction things so that we can fully enjoy our summer and read all kinds of books.
That's right. So. Yeah. And we will try to put in the show notes. This is the first time I will say the word show notes.
Figure out how to do
unironically.
Show notes.
We're going to figure out how to do these things. And we'll put a list of these things.
Yes.
But so if you're listening and you're driving, don't get into a car accident because you're so eagerly scribbling down Carter and
we'll figure this out. We promise.
That's right. We're going to make this happen.
All right. So Beth, let's start with you. Now you don't have to, was that a fiction one you just talked about?
That was a fiction one.
You don't have
can
to.
I plug his nonfiction book?
Yes, you can. Let's do that one when we do nonfiction.
Okay.
Yeah. So now you get an extra fiction if you want. I'm just saying. Why don't you give us
Theo of Golden. I mean, obviously Carter's a fan too, since he gave, but it is such a beautiful book. So I will thumbs up that one as well. So yeah.
All right, we'll put it in the show notes.
I think it should be required reading for the church. Can we do that? I can't do that. Okay, never mind.
The Bible
was a bad idea.
and.
Okay.
Well, why don't you give us 3-ish?
Okay, so another one
fictions
that a lot of people are going to have already heard of is called Remarkably Bright Creatures. It's by Shelby Van Pelt, and it's been really popular, but if you have not read it, I highly suggest it. It is a beautiful story about grief and a woman befriending an octopus. So not many people have probably done that. So it's something new to most people. The themes are grief, hope, resilience, and it's a beautiful story of a lovely woman who works in an aquarium and befriends an octopus. And I think you should read it.
Isn't it at times also narrated by the octopus?
Well, it is. He is a character, Marcellus the octopus. And he actually solves a mystery.
Oh my gosh.
Well,
so many
so
genres.
If this involves aquariums, then both Ken Hutto and myself will be big fans. We're
and
both
if it
huge
involves
fans.
mysteries, you've got me too.
That's right. This is a crowd pleaser of a book.
I think you will all like it.
All right, say the name
Fantastic.
one more time.
Remarkably Bright Creatures by Shelby Van Pelt.
All right.
Awesome.
Fantastic.
You want to give us a couple more? Then we'll move on to Carter.
Okay, sure. There is a book called The Swan House. The author is Elizabeth Musser. I have not met her, but I feel like I know her because she's friends with a painter in France who I have met when she was visiting here. And the painter worked with Elizabeth Musser on The Swan House. It is a historical fiction set in Atlanta. There was a plane crash in the 1960s, a group who were traveling from the High Museum to Paris, and there was a plane crash.
This is a historical event.
Okay, so that actually
that
happened.
is a real
okay.
event. And so this book is a fictional account of a character who lost people in that event. And so it talks about the racial things that were happening in that time. It is a beautiful story of learning to get to know other people and working in the community and how you deal with all the issues that are going on in the racial division that was happening at that time. She has also written some other she is a Christian fiction writer. She had a child at Covenant, so there's a fun kind of connection there because I'm seeing your Covenant sweatshirt.
I also
can see
have
that.
a child at Covenant,
Exactly. So y'all
I'm
have
not
that
a
in
famous
common,
writer.
So maybe you could. But she has a fun trilogy called Two Crosses, Two Testaments, and Two Destinies that I think you read. People would also like that. So I highly recommend that. And she is maybe somebody we could get to come and speak at our event. So working on that as well. So if she's listening, I mean, one in whatever. Yeah.
1 in 10 million.
Not feeling good about
Maybe
that.
she knows one of me and Abby's relatives because that's kind of our core audience right now. But
Dozens of them.
So that could be great. So those are kind. The other one, so I read a lot of escape fiction that is just like light, easy. I think God calls us to rest.
Yeah,
and that is
perfect for the summer.
Often find rest.
Yeah.
And so I would say when you're sitting on the beach, you could read The City Baker's Guide to Country Living by Louise Miller, which is a great book about a woman who leaves Boston and goes to the countryside of Vermont, I think, or Maine, and works as a pastry chef. So there's a lot about really good food. And so I love to read about food because I also love food. So I think people would like that too.
Yeah.
But it's very light. It's also a story of redemption and hope, though. So there you go.
that's great.
Sounds wonderful. All right, let's hear Carter's fiction picks.
Okay. I'm going to try and create some categories for this non-recurring series. The first of which is called the fiction book that you've read most. If I can't recommend the fiction book I've read most, one would wonder why. So the fiction book that I've read the most is The Old Man, the Sea. And you probably know of it. If you want to know more about it, don't go learn more about Ernest Hemingway. It'll just make you want to read the book less and less. But
He's a sad, sad man.
the reason I've read the book so many times is that I have a lot of family in South Florida, including my grandparents. And my grandmother went to his house in Key West sometime when I was young and sent me the book. And I read it. And it's a majestic story of a very poor Cuban fisherman named Santiago. It's deeply Christological all throughout. It's only about 120 pages. You can read it in one sitting. And I read it pretty much every year of my life prior to going down to visit my family in South Florida after Christmas, because my deep, deep, deep hope was that one of my uncles would invite me to go fishing, which they did from time to time, and that we might really tangle with a giant blue marlin, which is really at the core of this book. I'll read you the last couple of lines of the book, but it's in Hemingway's kind of classically spare but lovely language. Up the road in his shack, the old man was sleeping again. He was still sleeping on his face, and the boy was sitting by him watching. the old man was dreaming about the lions. Again, it's a book that I would what I would encourage you is not to go back and read the book that I have read so many times. I would encourage you to go back and read the book that you have read so many times, and be ready for it to come alive in a new way because you've lived some life since the last time you saw it. Let's see. I'm going to pitch a book that I don't have with me, and so the theme for this category is called "What About a Series?"
That was what I was going to ask.
Lucky me. So I'm going to scooch slightly to the left because I know this is a book that Beth doesn't love, and a series that she thought was boring. But I'm persuaded.
Beth she just laid her head on the table. She's asleep right now, even as we're talking about it.
So there's a extraordinarily prolific Scottish author named Alexander McCall Smith, who must never go to sleep without having written 20 pages. And he has written a series called 44 Scotland Street. 44 Scotland Street, if you put it, well, before I tell you who I think it's about. So if you showed like 20 people Gilligan's Island, but you didn't tell them the name of the series, some of them would say it's about Gilligan. Some would say it's about the captain. Some would say it's about the professor. Some would say it's about Marianne, and so on. 44 Scotland Street revolves around 6 or 8 recurring characters across 15 now books, which were all published in the Edinburgh paper. What is that called? When you write it a little bit at a time in a paper.
Serial.
Thank you. That's the one. You were a Scottish lad for a while. That's right. I think the book is about Bertie Pollock, 7 years old. And Bertie is sort of a fictional embodiment of all the gifts of the Spirit. So he is just filled with them all: love, peace, patience, kindness, gentleness. And it's about his encounter with modernity. The modernity that he encounters is a mother who is so convinced that she will perfect him by his Italian lessons, his yoga classes, his organic baking class, and the like, that she actually is kind of squashing him. And the deep, deep desire of Bertie's heart is to get to go over to his best friend, Reynold McPherson's house, because Reynold has a pocket knife. And the idea of actually getting to go out in the woods and get his hands dirty and carve his initials in a tree is just so beguiling that he can barely stand it. You might think the book is about Domenica, who is a 70-year-old semi-retired ethnographer, or about Angus, who is a working artist, and her husband, or about Big Lou, who runs the coffee shop. But whomever you think it's about, they will track along for thousands of pages. And if you get hooked on Edinburgh and hooked on these people and hooked on this little corner of humanity, you'll have a lot of fun.
That's great.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love series that like make you feel like you have a whole set of friends every time you open up one of the books. You're like, what have my friends been doing without me? Let me find out. Maybe I need more friends in your life. All right, Joey, give us one of your fiction picks.
Yes. I will just give one because we're going to do another one of these. I'll give another. But my fiction book, this would be under the category that Carter gave us of books you love to return to, is Gilead by Marilynne Robinson, which is a long letter or a series of letters from a father to a son. It's a book about fathers and sons. It's a book about America in many ways. It follows this family's generations from the Civil War on through the end of World War I. And it's a book really about learning to see people again and to see them truly. Because the main character, John Ames, Marilynne Robinson, this book won the Pulitzer Prize. She just captures this voice of this man who is writing to his young son, whom he knows he will not see kind of grow up into manhood. And he's passing on his wisdom and family history. And then this outsider, a previous character from John Ames's life, comes back, and John Ames is really struggling to figure out what it means to see this man truly. And it's really a story of forgiveness, and it's a story of blessing, because the story ends with this beautiful blessing that John Ames gives to someone else. So it's remarkable. It's beautiful. It's one of the reasons I love it. It's about a pastor, and he's a good pastor. And so, that's my book.
That's great. Excellent.
Gilead
And
by
Gilead.
Marilyn Robinson.
And I think I'm probably a lot like your golden retriever because my favorite book is whatever I'm reading right now. I do have some favorites. I'll have to think about that for our next podcast. But the series that I'm reading right now is Beartown by Frederick Bachman. But I really do love anything he's written. He is one of those authors that helps you put on a lens and discover the world from someone else's perspective. And he writes with such depth of feeling and such compassion. And so often the character that you start out hating becomes like one of your favorites in the end. And so yeah, I'm in that series. I was told to issue a warning. Frederick Bachman is amazing, and I wouldn't issue any warnings over any of his books except for the Beartown trilogy, which is the one that I'm reading right now, because it does center around a violent crime committed against a young woman. So I would rate it more PG-13, but all the rest of his stuff I would definitely say is PG. But right now I'm towards the end of the trilogy, so the series is looking at like this tragic violent crime happens to this one person, and then there's the ripple effect of how it affects the community and how many of them respond badly, and then the people who you expect the least respond beautifully. And then it's how the town begins to rebuild itself, and particularly the people most affected by the crime. So
That's great.
it's really, really, really good.
Yeah.
In general, I love him.
That's great. Yeah. And that's good just to even to think about. I think when we talk about, hey, as you read this book, you should know X, Y, Z about it, is not so much because it has intense content, because the book that we have been given by our God
It's way worse, honestly. The Bible has worse stuff in it.
Intense content. That's right. But it is a way of just sort of realizing that books outside of Scripture, that there is just a way that we should take care in what we take in, how we take it in, and all those kind of things. And that's the only reason why we say something like that.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So take care, but take it in. All right, let's move on. So those were, yes, a lot of great fiction out there, and so excited to see what other people discover and reread. I used to read Pride and Prejudice every summer because that's my Old Man and the Sea.
Alrighty.
And it is cool. Like every time you read your favorite book, something else comes out, which is really neat. But now let's turn our focus towards nonfiction. If you read the back of the Pew card in May, you saw that we had many ways that we're encouraging you to invest in yourself spiritually over the summer. We would love for you to come to Summer Nights at Signal Pres. We'd love for you to continue listening to the podcast. We have a reading plan that we will be rolling out within the next week or two. I actually don't know what date it is. So is it next?
I think it's
coming out
18th.
the 18th. Yes.
That's
Okay.
right, yeah.
I just couldn't remember if that was in 1 week or 2 weeks. Thanks. So one of the things we have suggested is that you pick a book that will challenge you spiritually. So I know for myself, I often want to just read a lot of fluff during the summer because I want to sit by the pool and read my stories that make me feel happy and all of that. But it does work against the grain of my heart to read something that challenges me over the summer. So we are going to give you a few suggestions of some things you could choose from. And we're going to start with Beth again. So we'd love to hear several of your nonfiction recommendations.
Okay, I can give them to you. They are not necessarily maybe going to be that. Maybe one
That's
of
okay.
them
That's okay.
will fit in that category. Because as I said, I read a lot of fiction, and the nonfiction that I read tends to be memoir. And so it reads a lot like fiction. And again, I like to read people I know about. And so there is a bookstore owner in Thomasville, Georgia, where our friends, the Filstons, live. And she has now become an author. So her book just came out. It's called Ordinary Time. And she wrote it during the pandemic. And what it was like to think you were going to go live a life in New York that was going to be big and exciting and everyone was going to know about. And kind of like Nora Ephron is who she relates it to. And what she ended up was living in a small town in South Georgia and owning a bookstore. And so she said that she challenges the idea that loud lives matter most. She finds hidden gifts of humor and hope from a life lived quietly. So she writes about what it's like to have a pool in your backyard, what it's like to have a brother and not a sister. She writes about what it's like to long for a family. All sorts of different stories and just small town community, what it's like like to sit and swing on your front porch and watch people go by. And I think it's lovely. I think her writing is really strong. And I've gotten to meet her before. She does a great podcast called From the Front Porch, where she talks about books and reading and life in the South. So if anybody's interested in another podcast about books, not that this one is not amazing. And we're doing a
Thanks for
great
clarifying.
job. Exactly. So another one that is also a memoir. My books are all really similar. You can tell where I am right now. But it's called It Was an Ugly Couch Anyway, and Other Thoughts on Moving Forward, which I think
Such a great title.
Scott kind of talked about moving forward today. So there you have it.
There you go.
The author is Elizabeth Passarella. She is a Southern woman who lives in New York. And the quote that I got from that I thought was really good was, if there is something you take away from these pages, let it be that God is passionately, personally concerned with every small hurt or inconvenience in your life. And you should talk to him about whatever you want, whether it is a real estate deal or a broken washing machine. What happens, though, what certainly happened to me, is that in thinking about how God cares about the humdrum business of your day, you start to fall more in love with him and less in love with the thing you started praying about in the first place. That's the best possible scenario, if for no other reason than you were a little less stressed out. So it's a great story about what it's like to live in a teeny apartment in New York with small kids and looking to find a new place. And the fun thing about it is that I really related to is her parents had an ugly plaid couch and she just couldn't bear to get rid of it. My parents also had an ugly plaid couch. So she cut a piece of the fabric and kept it. And she got rid of the couch, but she kept her piece of fabric to remember her parents by. So I let a little bit of nostalgia.
Yeah.
It's okay though.
Yeah. Not the kind Scott was talking about this morning. Not the meat pots in Egypt.
No. Not at all. And then, so I want to give a quick plug for Alan Levi's nonfiction book, which is about his brother. It's called The Last Sweet Mile. He cared for his brother when he was diagnosed with a brain tumor, so his last year of life. And it's a beautiful letter to his family about his brother. So for the kids who would maybe not know him, nieces, nephews, that kind of thing. And so he would say, I believe I've heard him say that he modeled Theo after his brother in some ways. And so I think that gives you a beautiful picture.
So should we read the fiction book first and then the nonfiction?
That's what I did. And I highly recommend that.
Yeah. And remind us again, what was the name of the fiction book?
Theo of Golden.
Got it. Okay.
And the nonfiction is The Last Sweet Mile. Okay. And it is really sad. I mean, but it's beautiful. It's how you care for it's beautiful.
That's great.
And then finally, I'm going to end with Prayer in the Night, which is the tagline is for those who work or watch or weep. And it is based on the prayer in Compline, which is in the Book of Common Prayer. And it says, where is what it says? Sorry. Keep watch, dear Lord, with those who work or watch or weep this night, and give your angels charge over those who sleep. Tend the sick, Lord Christ. Give rest to the weary. Bless the dying. Soothe the suffering. Pity the afflicted. Shield the joyous. And all for your love's sake. Amen. And it's beautiful. It's a story of, she talks about some really hard things that happened to her and how sometimes when life is so hard, you don't know what to pray to God. But if you have these beautiful liturgies and you can do that, there's lots of comfort and encouragement in that. And so I am not a rereader. I did read Theo twice. I am reading Prayer in the Night for the third time.
Yes.
So it's just a beautiful
I'm rereading
book.
it right now too. It is just excellent.
It's lovely.
And it's a beautiful companion if you're currently in grief, but we're all going to cycle in and out of grief. So it's also something that's wonderful to read if you're like, I don't know how to grieve well. And I want a friend to walk me down that path before I need to be there.
Right.
I think it's such a beautiful book for that too. If you're afraid of grief, you should read this book.
Absolutely.
It's a great book.
And then she also wrote Liturgy of the Ordinary. So if you have small children and you're doing laundry and,
and you need to
It's
find
good for
beauty
that.
in that.
That's right. Here's why I should make my bed.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you, Beth. All right, Carter, it's your time to shine. Tell us about your nonfictions.
Are they in categories?
I have this giant stack of nonfictions, and I'm actually going to call an audible, I think, right in the middle of it. But first, I'll do the one that I knew I was going to talk about. Tim Keller, much beloved as an author, wrote a book called Every Good Endeavor. I think it came out in 2012, which means I was, 40-ish or 43 or something. Anyway, it's a book that reframed work for me. And it was one of those books that did such a number on me that I immediately went and found out what year it was published because I wish I had read it like the first moment it was available. And like a lot of what I think Tim Keller was so masterful at, and a whole lot of people I'm realizing have thought longer and better about him than I have, but I don't know necessarily that Every Good Endeavor is filled with a bunch of extraordinarily new ideas about what work is. They're just linked together really masterfully, and they're really approachable. And at least for me, it really got a lot of traction. The intent of the book is to illustrate that from the beginning, we've been made to work, and that work is redemptive, and that the sort of modern American construct of what work is for is not just a little different than that. It's almost 180 degrees different than that. So I remember reading this paragraph for the first time and thinking, I got to rethink some things. Christians should be aware of this revolutionary understanding of the purpose of work in the world. We're not to choose jobs and conduct our work to fulfill ourselves and to accrue power. For being called by God to do something is empowering enough. We are to see work as a way of service to God and our neighbor. And so we should choose and conduct our work in accordance with that purpose. The question regarding our choice of work is no longer what will make me the most money or give me the most status. The question must now be, how with my existing abilities and opportunities can I be of greatest service to other people, knowing what I do of God's will and of human need? That really set to work on me. And I think, and with other, for me, it happened to be guys who needed to hear that message and set off, in some cases, like decade-long conversations of trying to understand better the real gift of work that we had been given and maybe beginning to steward it differently. So that's Timothy Keller, Every Good Endeavor. That's a book probably lots of you have read. Now I'm going to talk about a book probably almost none of you have read, which is very simply titled The Walk by a guy named Bill DeBuys, I think is how you say his last name. It's Debuys. Bill DeBuys is an Easterner who moved west onto rural land in northern New Mexico in the southern part of the Rockies. Soon after he moved to the land that he purchased, he began to walk about a 2.5 mile path that he's now walked every day, or at the time of the writing of this book, for about 30 years. This is close observation of another part of God's sharing of his generosity with his people, and that's physical space. One line of my family are very place-based people. They know the names of things, and they know the history of things, and they know how the names of the things and the people that live there and the history come together. And this guy, who was an Easterner coming to the West, just became really entranced with the land that he never really viewed himself as an owner of, but a steward of. This is a tiny little book. Again, probably read it in 2 days. And it sounds like this. I imagine that if water could dream, it would dream of the ocean, where it is always trying to go. I imagine, too, that if boulders could dream, they would dream no less for the ocean, but they would dream incomprehensibly slowly, and they would dream of themselves as sand. I find that almost poetic, lyrical. So it's a lovely work. I actually read it about 10 years ago, and I can't remember if there's some thing I need to give a disclaimer in about, because I remember the lyrical, poetic parts.
Do you have any other?
Here's my call it on the fly. There's a book called 4 Seasons in Rome by Anthony Doerr, who wrote All the Light You Cannot See, and
so good.
Rattle off all the other things.
Cuckoo Land.
Yeah, and maybe one other. Anyway, he's a Pulitzer Prize winning author, but he became that Pulitzer Prize winning author, or began to become that man when he was, help me, Beth, if I get this wrong, finishing up his PhD at like Boise State or Montana State or something, and won the Rome Prize, which
But he didn't apply for it. Somebody did it for him. And it was a key time in his life.
So he wins this prize that allows you to go to Rome and work at the American Academy of something and live in a palatial spot. But the one little sort of, oh, by the way, in the story is his wife had just given birth to twins. So he and his wife and their twin infants moved to Rome for a year. And again, I guess I'm giving myself away as somebody who likes sort of a close observation of a place. So he's new to everything. He's new to fatherhood. He's new to Rome. He's new to having space and time to actually write in. And it's a beautiful cycle of a year. Rome in the winter, Rome in the spring, Rome in the summer, Rome in the fall. We're all probably going to be seeing some footage of Rome in the next month or so. So if you want like one person's like really good observation of Rome.
Do you remember the other key thing?
Tell me.
The Pope died. And he was there during the election of a new Pope.
So this would have been...
So whatever year that was.
Benedict, maybe? Anyhow,
I think so.
It's like 2006, 2007.
This remains a reformed podcast. However, Rome is interesting.
Yes, it is.
Yes.
Oh, thanks, Carter. Okay, Joey, what is a nonfiction read you would recommend to us?
I'm going to recommend a book that will help you as our summer continues in Exodus. And it's a book by Peter Leithart, who is a pastor in Birmingham. I don't know if he's actively pastoring. I know he also teaches. It's called The 10 Commandments, A Guide to the Perfect Law of Liberty. And we are, as Exodus continues, we're going to slow down and take each commandment week by week. And my own discipleship has really been blessed by spending a lot of time in the 10 Commandments. Some of the discipleship work that I've done at Signal Pres has involved helping small groups of people kind of walk through the 10 Commandments one by one. And I just think they are so rich. And so this book, which is a part of a series of other books, is called Christian Essentials, is the series. It's pocket size. It's about 100 pages, and it just very clearly helps people to see just the gift of the law that we've talked about before. How the law is not only points us to Jesus as something we can't keep, but is also a gift from God that shows us a good and beautiful way to live. So you could read one of these per week this summer as each sermon comes up, and it would probably take you about 20 minutes to do that, and I think it would enrich your own discipleship.
That sounds great. And how fun, because it's right alongside of what we'll already be doing.
That's right.
So just enhance our experience. I'll round us out. My nonfiction recommendation is Practicing the Way by John Mark Comer. And this is a book I read last year. And feel like I've been reading about spiritual disciplines for several years now, and I feel like this is just a really good distillation of just talking through what it would look like to pattern your life after Jesus and to be with him, become like him, and do as he did. That's the subtitle of the book. Be with Jesus, become like Jesus, do as he did. And part of my own journey has been a desire to stop living life to the max and to the full and slow down and walk at a human pace with Jesus. And that has changed everything for me. So I love this book because it's very simple. I'm reading it with my 19 and almost 21-year-old this summer, and Ken. And my deep desire is that they will hear a call that took me 40 years to hear and listen to and obey, which is slow down. So I'm excited about that. So if anybody else is reading that this summer, come find me. We'll chat about it, because I love to verbally process all things. So
I think it's a great book for community. I'm reading it with a group of women right now, and it's a great book for community.
So it is. It's because our spiritual life is supposed to be lived in community with one another. So it's wonderful. Yeah, I really enjoy it. So
I agree.
With that rounds out our fiction, nonfiction recommendations for your summer reading, which we will have another podcast coming up soon, and we'll finish out with our questions.
Yeah. So 5 questions for Carter and Beth. First question: what does reading the Bible look like for you guys these days?
Me go first. I'm doing, well, I love the thing that the church did. So I've been doing that when we were doing that. And then I do Lectio 365 every day.
Me too. It's
I
so
love
good.
it. And it's been really good after Easter talking about anyway, love that. And then one time I did Bible in a Year, that app, and that was really great. And then Annie F. Downs, who's another author that I highly recommend, does Gospels in a month. And so I've done that some too. So
That's great. Lectio 360 is an app,
Lectio 365 is an app.
That's
and
right.
it takes you through a meditation / devotion / prayer. It's beautiful.
Yeah, it's great.
I read in the mornings on a pattern that I can't always describe to you how I come to it. I'm currently reading Acts, which is a book I tend to slow down in because it links to so many other things. And I'm forever finding that I haven't really begun to see all the connections between the people in the early church. So I'm reading it with a new resource this time, which has been really useful. And then I'm going back through the Bible in 1 year, the Nikki Gumbel app. Do you know that one? I've done it once before. I'm doing it again this year. I'm woefully behind. Don't ask me what day I'm on because I know it's nowhere close to what actual day it is. But and then we have some time of just talking about things that we're both reading with each other, which spurs up from time to time and is really, really wonderful when it does.
That's great.
Awesome. Well, we would love to hear, is there a passage or a verse from each of you that's either been particularly meaningful to you or one that you just kind of like your book that you go back to again and again and again?
this was a really hard question. I didn't want to narrow it down. I didn't like that. I wanted to go lots. But anyway.
Both.
Yeah, both. It's both. But I did it because I felt like I had to. Okay, so I did Matthew 11:28-30, and this will show you where I am in my life. Come to me, all ye who are weary and heavy burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light.
Mm-hmm. That's beautiful.
That's great. Yeah.
I went back and forth. And I landed on Psalm 121, which I do read all the time. I lift my eyes up to the mountains. Where does my help come from? My help comes from the Lord, the maker of heaven and earth. He will not let your foot slip. He who watches over you will not slumber. Indeed, he who watches over Israel will neither slumber nor sleep. The Lord watches over you. The Lord is your shade at your right hand. The sun will not harm you by day, nor the moon by night. The Lord will keep you from all harm. He will watch over your life. The Lord will watch over your coming and going, both now and forevermore.
Amen. That's beautiful.
That's great. All right. So Matthew and Psalms, Acts, where you guys have been by choice, but where are we least likely to find you reading in the Bible? All of it's God's word. We always enter that caveat, but there are some books that are just harder for us, or we feel more like a giraffe with skates on, roller skates on, when we're reading these books of the Bible. So what would you guys say? What are books of the Bible that are least comfortable for you?
I told Carter I was scared to answer this because I was afraid Scott was going to choose it to preach on.
Well, then he would make it all clear, right?
Okay, Leviticus.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, first
That's
Leviticus answer.
There's a lot of people who don't like Leviticus.
Yeah,
Leviticus.
A lot of hairy moles and skin diseases and other weird
that's what I
stuff
was
in that
thinking.
book.
It's hard. It's a hard book.
It's funny, the first part of your question is, I think you said where you might feel less capable, but then the second one was like where you'd almost like most fear to go.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure this would be the same thing for a lot of us, right?
Right,
Because where I might like most fear to go would probably be like John, because like there it is, like right in front of you, and it's like really all that. And but it's not. That's fear of, not fear from. Right?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
But no, I think where I would at least want to go are the places where I get lost the fastest, which would be like Jeremiah or Ezekiel, like the really long Old Testament, like prophetic books where I feel like a knucklehead and I can't figure out what's going on a lot.
It's okay. The original hearers couldn't figure out what was going on a lot either.
As was evidenced by the responses.
That's right. Maybe that's That's what he should preach on next is Ezekiel.
That's right.
All right, here's another question that's going to be really hard to narrow down. Who is someone that has shown you the love of Jesus?
So also hard to narrow down, like you said. But for me, it would be my mom. And yeah, she just was this gracious, wonderful woman who taught me all about what it meant to follow Jesus. And she taught me how to pray. And we would pray around the table in the morning. My mom and dad and me, I was the youngest in my family. And my brothers were a lot older. And so they had already left to go to college. And I was hanging out with mom and dad, which was really fun. She took me to Camp John Knox for family camp, and she hated camping. And she just did it willingly and graciously, and we just had a lot of fun together, and I miss her.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Thank you.
What about you, Carter?
I'm going to choose Beth. And here's why. Among the ways Beth is teaching me to walk around our neighborhood. And she started teaching me this actually when she taught me to walk through a grocery store. And I think ultimately what I mean by that is she's teaching me pacing of life that doesn't come naturally to me. So I think left to my own devices, I go through life 1,000 miles an hour and see if I can just figure out a way to have time in case anything pops up that is time worthy. And Beth goes around our neighborhood expecting to stop a lot. And like her dwell time in a conversation is really beautiful to watch. And just the cycle time that you live at to allow yourself to learn people's stories and to be with them is nearly a foreign language to me. But it looks very much like the stories of the walking around that Jesus did, where he got to know things. So, I like watching that.
That's sweet.
That's beautiful.
That's great. That's great. All right. Well, last question. This question has been answered in very many interesting ways. We've learned about river dance, about belly dancing, learned about Glenn Baird's clandestine career as a member of some band, which he refuses
she
to
still
reveal.
won't tell us the name of.
That's right. But
I should
I can
know
get to the
that.
bottom of this.
Exactly.
I was gonna say, I
Exactly.
should know that.
Exactly. I've asked around. I've done some early investigative work, so we can confer.
You're sleuthing.
This is going to turn into like a true crime podcast.
Let's hope
What
not.
band was Glenn Baird in?
Hope he hasn't committed any crimes.
It could be a bad hair.
Exactly. But what would be something that would be surprising about the Newbolds that people who just kind of know you would be surprised to know, either jointly or separately?
I have a epically horrible relationship with automobiles. So
You look surprised by this, Beth.
I didn't know this.
oh, of course you do. So I have at various points in my life, I reported my car stolen when it was actually parked in my own driveway. We had a lot of very young children at the time. A different time, I had a rental car and I forgot to set the parking brake and it nearly rolled into an Irish river. It was only saved by like a berm that they build to save cars from idiot tourists. There's more. Come see me if you want to hear Carter is bad with car stories.
That's fantastic.
I did know those, so yeah, I'd forgotten.
It's just normal. It's like the furniture, you know. Yeah,
It doesn't strike me as anything unusual. I think so. Two things, I guess, would be Carter and I met in high school, which we've already told you, but we thought that was the first time we had met. Milu, whose last name was Steele growing up, mine was Steele, so we always got confused for each other because our dads were both dentists, and she didn't have an E on the end of her name. I had an E on the end of my name. And so she was going through some of her parents' things and found her 3-year-old birthday party list where Carter and I are listed beside each other.
Oh, wow. That's
Apparently, we met when we were 3. My fun fact is that I can do a backflip in a bridesmaid's dress. There you have it.
Listen, we have a talent show
That's
coming up.
right.
I think
We
we
do.
need Carol to belly dance and
Yes,
Robert
to
to
river
river
dance.
dance and Beth
Glenn to perform
to
with a band.
and Beth to backflip in a bridesmaid's dress.
I don't know about that.
Right.
I can't remember whether we hit our family minimum for the year
That's
yet or
right.
not.
However, we will not put Carter in charge of being the valet.
No, you
So-
may not drive the golf cart.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much for being with us. This has been great. I've got some new books to add to my list.
Yes, and we will add those to the show notes.
That's right. Exactly. So, friends, when you think about this upcoming summer, as you think about what it is that you're going to spend time to do, hopefully maybe one of these books has piqued your curiosity, particularly one that will help you take another step in your life with Jesus. There's always more for us. So thanks for listening. We'll be back with another episode about life and books in summer very soon.
Happy reading.
Thanks for listening to the Signal Pres podcast. I want to thank our extensive production team, beginning with Matt Broom, sound man extraordinaire.
And thank you to Hannah Sutton and Jackie Carpenter for helping us out with all of our technical difficulties and making it possible for you to listen to this podcast.